Hello, welcome back to my podcast Just for Today. Lovely to have you here with me. And for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, you will see that I am sitting at my kitchen table today because we decided over the bank holiday weekend to give my office some much needed and very much deserved TLC. So my office is the spare bedroom in the house that I inherited after my eldest son left home last year, and we live in a new build, so everything's whitewashed, and we're slowly making our way around and putting colour into the house. And if you've been following my stories, you would have seen a little bit of the colour that we're adding, but it will be finished in the next couple of days, so I will be recording back in my office as of next week. But for today, and just for today, I am at my kitchen table, which feels very COVID-y because when we all went into lockdown, me, my husband and my eldest son all had to work from home, and my youngest son actually for a period of time. So we were all kind of in our bedrooms, and then we built an office at the end of the garden for my husband, so then I migrated onto the kitchen table. Yeah, those days, it seems such a long time ago, but really not that long at all. Anyway, I firstly wanted to thank you all for the absolute outpouring of love that I received for last week's episode, which featured one of my most favourite people in the world, Lauren, in the first of my series, Women Who Thrive. And this is something I'm going to be bringing regularly, potentially every 4 to 6 weeks to the podcast, because I, as you know, or you may not actually, am a firm and strong believer in seeking out collateral beauty in all areas of our lives, looking for it rather than choosing to see our life in a very different way. And I want to talk to women that feel the same as me, talk to women that have faced lifetime challenges and risen as a result of it. And Lauren was my natural go-to because we started a podcast together early last year. And also because I've seen her journey, and if you haven't listened, go back and listen. But if you have, you'll understand what I mean when I say collateral beauty. Because Lauren has faced an awful lot, and she's still here, and she's still pushing, and she still goes for everything that she wants to go for. So she's a huge inspiration to me, and she's my ride or die. So thank you for all the love and the outpouring that we received for the podcast. It really was wonderful to hear all of your incredible feedback. Anyway, let's get on to this week's episode of the podcast. And this week has really come about after speaking with clients over the last few months. And regular things that come up for my clients is boundaries, and I talk about boundaries a lot. I won't ever not talk about boundaries because they're so important. And we often learn boundaries the hard way. We often learn we learn a lot of our life's lessons, don't we, through experiencing things that we don't want to experience again. And one of the questions I get asked quite a lot is, how do I create boundaries that are safe for me with people that I care about, whether that's parents, children, friends, just people that we have in our lives consistently? How do I create healthy boundaries for myself without upsetting them? How do I explain those boundaries to them? And it's not an easy one, because if we think about how we've got to the place where we are today, it will be because of conditioning and lifetime experiences. And let's just use our parents as an example, because it's probably the most common thing that comes up with my clients when we're talking about creating boundaries with other people. And parents are a biggie, because let's not forget, we've been raised generally by these people that have shown us their map of the world, and we've created our own map of the world from the experiences that we've had with them. So when we get to a point in our life where we don't think that that's healthy for us anymore, or something that's coming up isn't healthy for us anymore, creating that boundary or actually saying no to that person can be really difficult. And it can be loaded as well, because not only can it be difficult because of the lifetime experience we have with them, but also we don't want to cause pain to other people. And sometimes saying no to another person creates pain for them, and we don't want to do that. Don't forget that I always say, behind every behaviour is positive intention. So we don't want to create negative feelings for somebody that we most in the main care about. I'm trying to think of an example that I can use. Let's just say you've had a baby, right? Let's just say you've had a baby and you want to create space. Now, back in my doula days, this would come up quite a lot, because when we have our children, the typical reaction is all the family want to come around, don't they? They all want to come around and see this new baby and hold this new baby and sort of celebrate this new life. But actually what we might want to do is create some space for us to bond with our child first. We might want some space to just find our feet a little bit, maybe get home if we've been in hospital, or if we birthed at home, just to kind of create that environment that we want to create. And we might not want people stepping into that environment. Now, what may happen if we say to those people that want to come and see the baby, no, you can't come for a week, we're just going to have a settling in period, which is effectively creating a boundary. They might get offended by that. Well, we want to come and see our new grandchild, we want to come and see our new niece or nephew or whatever. And they may take that personally. It could be quite an uncomfortable boundary for you to set. And that did used to come up quite a lot when I was doulaing, because the new parents would very much want those first few moments together. And creating that boundary would almost be taken as a, you don't want me here, you're offended by my presence, or what harm is it if I just pop in and see the baby? So that's one example of creating a boundary that feels comfortable and safe for you, but not necessarily safe for the person or persons that you are imposing that boundary on. And boundaries don't have to be comfortable for the other person for them to be right for you. But the dialogue that could be going on in your head is, oh, but I can't say no. I'm not, we don't say no to her or him or them. We don't do that. Then that might cause me more aggravation. And in the long run, it's just going to be a real pain in the backside. So let's just suck it up and get on with it, rather than take that stand and say, well, no, actually that doesn't work for me anymore. And going forward, this is how it's going to look. Now, when we think about boundaries, what we're wanting to do is create safety around ourselves. That's why we want those boundaries in place. If it was a workplace that you wanted to create a safe boundary or create a boundary, what you're doing is actually saying, I need to feel safe in this space, and this boundary allows me to feel that. So, we can consider being in our boundary as also being in our comfort zone as well. And don't forget that comfort zones are there for a reason. Now, in previous episodes, I've talked about stepping out of your comfort zone when you feel the opposite to that. Comfort zones are, fantastic, but if they're holding us back and we want to create something new, we have to step out of our comfort zone. But that's a whole other episode that I'm talking about. In this instance, what I'm talking about is creating a boundary around you to keep you safe, that allows you to hold your values and stay aligned to the way that you want to live your life, whilst keeping other people in a safe place to respect that. So it can be difficult to impose them. It can be really difficult, when you've been doing something for a very, very long time. Making a change can be uncomfortable for you and can be uncomfortable for them. But like I say all the time, being uncomfortable doesn't necessarily mean it's the wrong thing to be doing, because we associate that feeling of uncomfortableness with, well, it's not right then, it shouldn't feel like this, which I disagree with in some instances. We have our gut feelings, and our gut feelings are there for a reason. But if your gut feeling is saying to you, this isn't right, this boundary isn't right, somebody is impacting your boundary in a way that doesn't feel right for you, then absolutely lean into that feeling. This is all about leaning into our feelings, isn't it? It's never as black and white as, there's so many nuances with our feelings and emotions and what we're experiencing. And you will know if there's an area of your life where you need to either install a boundary, maybe rebuild, or even just a little bit of repair work that needs to be done to that boundary. You will know if you have an area of your life where you want to do that work. And that is where we start to look at, okay, what do I need to do? What's the next step I need to take for me to start creating a healthier boundary here? It doesn't have to be this big declaration, this is how it's going to, well, it can be, but it doesn't have to be a big declaration of this is the way it's going to be. Like I say with everything, baby steps are still steps forward. When we watch a baby walk for the first time, they don't power stride, do they? They kind of take a couple of steps and then sit back down again and then go, actually, I'm going to crawl a little bit more now because this is actually what I know. What we're wanting is just still those movements forward. It doesn't have to be powerful strides where you declare to the world that this is how it's going to be and this is the new you and everybody has to be this way around you. We can take really baby steps forward to ultimately get us to that destination of that safe boundary that is all the way around us, helping us to live a life that feels much more aligned to us. Now, there will always be pushback from those that you are imposing that boundary on, because they've lived with you in their life for a set amount of time. It's always been this way. Why does it have to change? There will always be a pushback. And that is where it gets uncomfortable. And that is where I implore you to keep taking those baby steps and just keep holding firm. Because it's just a jostle, right? It's just a jostle of position. It's just somebody going, whoa, hang on a minute. That isn't how it used to be. Why are we changing things? I like things to be a set way, because humans, we like repetition, we like normal, we like that security of knowing what to expect. So when you change the game, it's almost a bit like hang on, what's going on here then? This is not how we usually do things. That is where it can get uncomfortable, and that could be where pushback occurs. That is where I encourage my clients to just stand firm. We don't have to ever explain ourselves. I'm trying to think of an example where this could be applicable. Let's say you have a parent that likes to discuss how you dress. And I'm sure you've all experienced something like it. Like my grandfather, there's an example. My grandfather, love him, miss him. Massive part of my life, but he didn't believe women should wear nail varnish. He thought it was unladylike. He thought it was ladies of the night that wore things like that, and you know what I mean by that. He had a real judgment on women that wore nail varnish because it kind of made them stand out and look a certain way, which meant that men would potentially judge them harshly on that. I've also heard this from another relative as well who used to think the same about ankle chains. Girls shouldn't wear ankle chains because, again, women of the night, same side of the family, funny enough, you know, when they wear things like that, that's almost like an advertisement to say, hey, want some of this? So my granddad used to be quite open about that. No, I think it's really ladylike for you to just wear a clear nail varnish that just makes your nails look pretty. And I love having my nails painted. I haven't had them done for a while, but every time I used to get my nails painted, I used to think, oh, you know, my granddad had passed by this point. I wonder what my granddad would think. And actually, if he was here, he would have probably made a comment on that. The same can be said for tattoos. You know, growing up, tattoos on women was very unladylike in my family. And when I had my first one done, I remember being really frightened to tell my dad. But it didn't stop me from having a tattoo done, but I knew that I was going to get a level of judgment from that. So with those examples, what we can do is we can allow that person to feel what they want to feel. It's up to them to have the judgments that they have, but we can stand firm in that, and we can say, do you know what? I respect your opinion, but I don't need to hear it. Thank you very much. And I know that sounds easier said than done, but we can do it in maybe a more compassionate way of, do you know what? Your opinion really is valuable to me, but this is what's right for me. And if it persists, like over a period of time, well, I don't like that, we get to choose to say, and I don't like the fact that you comment consistently, and that's just, we're not going to have these discussions anymore. There is nothing wrong with shutting down a peer or a parental influence in our life, whether that's parent, grandparent, or whatever. It's not disrespectful to say, I value your opinion, however, it doesn't align with mine, and we just don't need to discuss this anymore. This is how it is. Unless your actions are directly affecting their life and having an impact on how they live their life, like you're living with them and you're breaking their boundaries and you're coming in at all hours of the night, etc., then in my opinion, they don't get to have a say on how I live my life, because it's my life to live. But I know that that's not an easy thing to do, but I think we can make starts by creating boundaries, by just closing down those conversations or saying, we need to agree to disagree on this. when it comes to religion, when it comes to politics, when it comes to how I live my life, we will never agree on this, therefore we won't be discussing this anymore. You know, those types of things. That is a way of creating a boundary. Now, if that person continually persists and wants to come at you, you have choices there, but it's however what conditioning you have as to how you move forward with those choices. Because, you know, culturally we are taught we don't disrespect our elders, we don't speak like this to our parents, but we actually do get to have those choices. That is the conditioning of your lifetime's experiences that's speaking to you there. And when the noises come up, you shouldn't be saying that, you shouldn't be doing this, they're your parents. You know, actually you can take a step back and think, but is this going to be helpful to me? Can we create a safe boundary while I'm not disrespecting them, but I'm explaining to them that this conversation or this subject matter is no longer on the table. We are just not going to talk about this. We are all grown adults now. We're just not going to talk about this anymore. So to safeguard our relationship, to create safety between us. So I like to take my clients through a visualization sometimes of their actual boundaries, and you can do that yourself. We obviously can't go as in depth via the podcast. If you want to do that type of work with me, of course you absolutely can. But what I would encourage you to do just for today is get curious about what your boundary looks like. Now, your boundary is going to be going on this like a protective shield, bubble, however you want to see this, but it goes all the way around you and it's keeping everything of you safely kind of tucked inside. But it's also a movable boundary, so it's able to receive, it's able to absorb everything that you wish to absorb, but it shields you from everything that you wish to be shielded from. And you can visualize that however you want to. You can visualize that as a bubble of protection. You can visualize that as a big white picket gate that goes all the way around you. That's how I see mine. You can visualize it as a color. You can visualize it as a symbol. But just get a clear idea in your head of what your personal boundary looks like, with all of you safely tucked inside. And then just get an idea of any areas of that boundary that needs to be repaired. Notice if there are any holes, or if it's a bit tired, or if it's a bit worn. Just really close your eyes and focus in and get curious about your boundary and what it might look like for you. I've used a few words that may have suggested what it looks like for you, but just really connect with your own boundary and think about, what is it made of? What materials? What colours? As it goes all the way around you, how does it feel to be inside of that when you've done the repair work? Maybe you need to build one solid from scratch. Or as I say, maybe it just needs to have a little bit of minor repairs or totally rebuilt as well. So just spend some time with your eyes closed and just breathing nice and calmly, and just think about your own personal boundary and how it looks. And if there's anything that you need to do to repair that. And then I want you to notice yourself when you've done that, just in a situation where it may be impacted, and just visualize that situation with, if it's a person and it's words, they just don't come through that boundary. So if it is a picket fence, it just stays on the outside of the fence. If it's a bubble, they just bounce off. Like if it's a shield, they're just bouncing off those words and those actions. Because actually we don't ever have to get into conversations where we have to explain ourselves or share why we do something in the way that we do, unless we are directly impacting somebody else. We don't have to have those conversations. We can choose to not have those conversations and stay safe within our own personal boundary. So I hope that's been really useful to you today. As I just said, if this is an area of your life that you're wanting to look at, my one-to-one work can go really quite deep on personal boundaries. We can get into what needs to be put in place, how we can put that in place, and what might be preventing you from doing that in the past as well. So you're conditioning your lifetime's experiences. And of course, I would love you to come and join my free WhatsApp community, the Just for Today community. It's a beautiful community. We're nearly at 50 members as I record this today. It's just vibrant and powerful and so beautiful with the community. So I would love you, absolutely love you, to come and join that community. And I will put a link to that community in the show notes of this podcast as well. And lastly, before I leave you today, I would just like to share with you that my Pause and Reconnect in real life face-to-face event is now on sale. We will be coming together in Chelmsford in a stunning location where all the doors open. It's going to be a warm, sunny day. We are going to be on the grass. We're going to put our feet on the grass. I'm constantly building this in my head. I'm starting to write down things that I'm going to do with everyone. It's going to be inner child connection. We're going to do some stuff around boundaries. We're going to do stuff around values, possibly, right? It's not going to be scripted. As always, the work I do is completely organic and it comes from everybody in the room and what they're going to need for that day. But I will have a very loose agenda, but I would love you to join me on that day. As I say, it's in Chelmsford, it's on a beautiful location, and it is going to be Tuesday, and I'm hoping I'm getting this date right because I haven't looked at my phone. Tuesday the 25th of June 2023. We will be meeting from 9:30, and I'm just literally checking the date as I'm talking to you now. 27th of June, Tuesday the 27th of June in Chelmsford, just outside of town with free parking. It'll be a beautiful location from 9:30 till 4:30. This really is your chance to come together with like-minded women and just hit the pause button and reconnect to all that you are and all that you desire to be. Until next week, lovely people.